Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Trey. Super pumped to chat.
Yeah, same here. So I've known about Mindbloom for a while now. I think it was a little over a year ago that I first heard about it. And I've actually been a patient as well. And you and I had spoken briefly at that time. I think you were doing some of the initial screenings for patients, I think in the early days.
That sounds right.
So it's good to connect here a year later. I'm excited to see how things have progressed. So maybe let's just start with a little bit of background on you and Mindbloom.
Awesome. I'm the founder and CEO at Mindbloom. I'm a three-time entrepreneur who has built a few companies that have all been deeply personal to me. Maybe you could call them like world positive companies, trying to increase access where I think people need it most. My first company was in voting and elections. It's a company called Voters Friend. We sold to a company called democracy.com, trying to increase access to local democracy, maybe a little bit before its time. Last company, a company called Mighty, that increases access to social justice and financial inclusion for people who've been injured in the justice system. And this company, Mighty, where we are increasing access to some pretty radically transformative behavioral healthcare treatments, these psychedelic therapies.
Awesome. So you kicked things off. Was it about a year ago? When did the company actually launch?
I feel like I kicked off Mindbloom like 11 years ago and have been working on it since then. But I founded Mindbloom in around November of 2018 is when I started working on it in earnest. I, at the time, had just left my last company, Mighty, in order to start something in mental health care. It's an area that's just like deeply personal to me. And at the time, I was getting lunch with my good friend and personalized medicine physician, and he blew my mind when he told me that he had been working with ketamine therapy in his private practice and getting people incredible results. I had for years and years not just been evangelizing psychedelic therapy because of the impact it had made on me and my life and my personal and emotional and ontological development, but I'd been following psychedelic therapy and medicine and the incredible work that MAPS and a lot of other organizations have been doing to bring it to the forefront. But my mind was blown when I learned that psychedelic therapy was actively being used by physicians and clinicians across the country through ketamine therapy. So at that time, I became a patient myself, and it was just as powerful as some of my other psychedelic therapy experiences. And I saw a big opportunity to help bring this to more people by increasing access, by bringing the cost down, using telemedicine to make it more affordable, and just try to build something really special with the limited talents that I have.
So what was your personal experience prior to starting the company with psychedelics?
So I grew up in a family that was pretty annihilated by mental health care issues, a lot of addiction, a lot of psychosis. In fact, my mother today is one of the 500,000 homeless people in the US. She lost her battle with schizophrenia and addiction. And as a working class family, we were not able to help her. Because of growing up in a family with a lot of addiction, I had a very strong aversion in my relationship to drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So I never thought I would use something like psychedelics until it was June of 2009. I had a really close friend who I really trusted, who really advised me to try MDMA. I thought it would be really good for me. And I knew that I had some issues that I've come to understand, or as a result from growing up in a pretty turbulent home that I think a lot of people would describe as traumatic. And when I did MDMA for the first time, it like catalyzed a fundamental transformation in how I related to like others in the world, pushed me on a path to transforming from someone who was very much a pessimist to someone who could at least begin becoming an optimist and relate positively to others in the world and not just like my tribe, which is a story that you hear from a lot of other people. So it's not that unique. Over the last 11 years, I've had experiences with a lot of different psychedelic therapies, probably most of the well-known ones, and they've just been a massive part of my development. Would I be who I am today without them? Like, undoubtedly, no. I don't think they're the end-all be-all of like the development that I've had or that I've seen other people had. They're like a tool and a medicine and a mechanism to catalyze change and healing if one puts the work in, and I put a lot of work in other areas as well. But man, I just think it's such a gift to have had access to these things, and the ability and opportunity to help others access them in a way that connects the right people to the right medicines with the right doctors is I'm very grateful for it. It's very cool.
That's great. So Mindbloom is starting with ketamine right now, and some of that's just due to the current regulatory and legal environment. Did you have any experience with ketamine prior to starting Mindbloom, or was this your sort of first foray into this particular substance?
So after I became a ketamine patient through my physician's practice, at that point, I was like, wow, here's a medicine that feels just as effective as other medicines I've tried. And I think there's an opportunity to use it. I actually think a couple of things have like dramatically changed over the past 18 months since I thought about starting Mindbloom.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was initially I thought, wow, it's really powerful. But like you just pointed out, it's the only available prescribable psychedelic therapy. And there's this opportunity to leverage ketamine as a wedge into building the brand distribution channels, provider network, therapeutic platforms, software, such that as these other psychedelic therapies become unlocked by MAPS and Compass Pathways and Atai and a lot of other biotech and pharma companies that are bringing these to market to help change lives, we would have already built the demand and the piping for these companies. However, I think a couple things has changed in that time period. One is after partnering with a lot of ketamine providers who've been doing this for years and hearing their stories of the transformation that they have created with their clients. Two, actually digging into the clinical research around depression and anxiety and how intractable these conditions and states of being are for people and how deficient SSRIs and antidepressants are when it comes to the actual efficacy of them, both in the short and long term for people. And then three, seeing not just the clinical data on ketamine therapy and just how incredibly effective it is in the short term of providing rapid relief for so many people, but actually seeing at Mindbloom the thousands of sessions that our clinicians have done, the like life-changing results from people who have been on 10 antidepressants over the past 2 to 3 years, and none of them have worked for them, who are having relief for the first time in 10, 20, 30 years. All of that has shifted my thinking into thinking that ketamine therapy alone is going to be an instrumental paradigm shift in how psychiatric treatments are provided to patients in the behavioral healthcare system, and has the power to like fundamentally transform behavioral healthcare. My hypothesis is that there are like 38 million Americans on antidepressants right now and 20 million Americans on anti-anxiety meds. And in 5 to 10 years, we could see it totally flip where a majority of people are using ketamine therapy as a frontline treatment. And we see traditional antidepressant SSRI use plummet and ketamine therapy along with these other medicines supplant them as the leading treatment.